Hey there. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kelsey, and I have come back to record part two of my story. If you haven't already watched part one, I would go back and start there. The other day, I just hit record and I started sharing my story, essentially answering the question how I got here, how I came to become an international energy healer and spiritual teacher and diviner. Um, so yeah, I think where we left off was I had just talked about how in my mid to late 20s, going into my 30th year on this planet, I had just experienced the most difficult year of my life. And how at the end of that experience, um, I was telling you that I took a yoga retreat for a week and I met my first healer, Susan. And she was also an African cowrie shell diviner, which I knew nothing about at the time. And I was saying that she had planted this seed within me, just this something that I had to water. I had to come home and really figure out who I was, what I had just experienced, um, and why. why why certain things were happening to me, like why life had been kind of laid out in the way it had. Like I think intuitively I just really felt like the last couple of years and especially leading up to meeting Susan was for a reason. I just didn't know why. I didn't know where it was leading me. And I think that that's another really important lesson is I think that God always has a plan for us, even when we don't see it or know it or understand it. But God is always, He's always working on us. He's always giving us opportunities to grow and change and evolve. And looking back at the really hard times in my life, I can see how they all had to happen. They were all on purpose. And everything in my life has always been divinely orchestrated. It's all been on purpose. And at that time, I really didn't know that, but I could kind of feel it. I could sense it. I could sense this change starting to happen within me, this transformation. I couldn't explain it because it was more of a spiritual transformation, or it was something that couldn't be seen, but I could feel it. This change wanting to happen, this part of me needing to be watered and nurtured. And ultimately, it was helping me to become the person that I am now. Right. So I went on this retreat a couple weeks after my 30th birthday. And I came home from that trip feeling really determined to do everything in my power to understand the person that Susan had seen in me and to become who I was meant to become. But first, that required a lot of healing on my part. And healing can be so basic. um, like for me, I had to figure out how to regulate my nervous system. I think I mentioned in the last video, like I was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, I was depressed. Um, and so I spent a good year just really learning how to regulate my nervous system, heal my anxiety, working on my mental health. And that's what I mean. Like healing can be so basic. I think people want it to be like a quick fix, or they think there's like a magic formula that if they follow, they'll be healed. And it's very different for everybody. But I just started with what was in front of me. And what was in front of me was, okay, I have this anxiety, I have this depression, I have these really obvious elephants in the room, and um, I need to start conquering them, you know? Healing also for me at that time looked like me starting to break down old patterns, old behaviors, um, negative self talk, all that programming and conditioning that I had inherited over the first 30 years of my life. And so, healing for a lot of people is kind of a breaking down of all that you thought you were, and clearing and letting go everything from your life that is holding you back or making you feel small or making you feel insignificant. So I really was getting to the core of like, why do I feel all this shame? Why do I feel all this doubt? Where is all this needing to play small coming from? This fear of not wanting to be seen, this fear of success and fear of failure and fear of judgment. Like, where is all this coming from? So I really started doing a lot of deep healing. Um, that was mental, it was emotional. I also did a lot of physical healing because I wasn't physically healthy. And I alluded to that as well, that I was really sick. Like I just, my immune system was shot. And I was getting sick all the time. I was living in chronic pain. Uh, I was having stomach problems. Like there were like I couldn't eat certain foods, like basic foods would, send me into the bathroom. And yeah, like my body was a wreck. My body definitely was keeping the score, right? That's the saying, the body keeps the score, and my body was definitely screaming at me like something's wrong. Figure your life out. You are not doing good here. Even just like I couldn't sleep. And yeah, just all these health issues that at the time they were minor, but it was just a lot. And I knew that if I didn't heal my body, like you can't do anything in life if you don't have physical health. Anybody who is chronically ill or sick will tell you that if you don't feel good, like you're not going to get far in life. And so, I started working out and changing my diet, becoming more conscious of, like chemicals and toxins and things like that in my environment. That was a big part of my process. I know that's not a part of everybody's process, but it was a huge part of my healing journey was um, just cleaning up my environment of chemicals and toxins and things like that. Like it was very physical at first, my healing. It was not spiritual or energetic. It was very physical. And I just started to just overall become more healthy. Um, I had to create a lot of strong boundaries, especially around family, which is the hardest thing in the world to do, is to tell your family, hey, back off. uh, and understanding that people that I was surrounding myself with, some of the people I was surrounding myself with weren't good for me. They weren't good for me. And so creating boundaries was a lesson I had to learn a lot, and that was hard. And really part of my healing journey was just kind of figuring out what brought me peace and what brought me happiness, and then prioritizing those things in my life. And I didn't do all these things at once, but gradually, the healing journey is just starting to take baby steps, right? And just adopt whatever's in front of you. Whatever, if it's a lifestyle choice, or, it's an online course, or it's a book, or it's, whatever it is. And if it's in front of you and it feels right, you tackle it. You dive into it. And yeah, it wasn't all at once, but it was just slowly I was starting to figure out what made me happy, what made me feel whole, what made me feel good in my body. And I just, everything started to shift. I said healing can be so basic, but also healing can also be really complex. And so I was doing some complicated things too, especially a little bit later in my healing journey. That's where I really started diving into, you know, who my childhood, um, understanding that I that there were parts of me that were very wounded, you know. Sometimes we call it the inner child or the wounded child. There's this aspect of all of us that it carries a lot of pain from childhood. And it wasn't that my childhood was extremely traumatic or difficult or anything like that, but there were definitely pieces of growing up that had really hurt me, and had created a lot of kind of negativity, negative self-talk and stuff like that. So I really had to sit with that. And healing the more complex things of healing, I had to do a lot of shadow work, looking at the darker parts of me, really, really getting a mirror out and looking at myself in a really deep way. And that's hard to do, and you have to face your demons. You have to face your negativity. You have to face all of your, part of my language, but you have to face your shit. You have to face it if you want to heal, like truly heal. Um, and you have to understand it. Um, you have to love it. You have to accept it. Um, yeah, I just, I'm sharing this because I think there's somebody out there who needs to hear it and wants to hear it and is looking for me to go deep. Um, yeah, figuring out your triggers. Um, that's a big part of healing, and so much more. Um, so I was doing all that, and eventually I started getting more and more curious about energy work. Started working with some different healers to really help me on the spiritual side, because I think I had a lot of knowledge about how to heal myself physically, mentally, emotionally. I think I was pretty good at all that, but I didn't know. I knew that there was a puzzle piece that was missing in my healing journey, and it had to be, that energetic piece, or that spiritual piece, that spiritual healing. I didn't know how to do that. I just knew that that was an important component, right? Because I see our overall health as being four very distinct puzzle pieces, or like four pieces of a pie chart, and they're all very equal. So you have your physical health, your mental, your emotional, and then your spiritual or your energetic health. It's that part of you that can't be seen. Um, and it's that part of us that, you know, traditional medicine, modern day medicine doesn't always address because they don't know how to. And I realized that I needed to heal like the whole of me. And so I couldn't neglect that there was this spiritual component that needed healing. I was not looking for a spiritual awakening. I was not looking to be a healer. I was not looking to communicate with spirit. I was not looking for it. I was not looking to, I stayed for the most part out of the whole like new age spirituality movement. Like, was very aware of it, but it just never felt like something I wanted or needed to immerse myself in. I just kind of like narrowed in on my own path and what felt right for me. And I was not I like this is the funny part is I was not looking to like wake up spiritually or have this spiritual awakening. And I even like to this day, I hate those words. I hate the words spiritual awakening, but there's no other way to describe it. There's no other way. And um, so yeah, but that's what happened. Because all of the healing work that I was doing just to improve myself, to work on myself, to be a better mom for my kids, to be a better wife, to be a better business owner, like all these things, like I was just doing it for me. Um, and I was not, yeah, it was not on my radar to have this like spiritual awakening, but it happened because all the things that I was doing cleared me, right? And they healed me. And when you're clear and you're showing up healthy, and I started having this really high vibration. Like this, I was just carrying this high frequency because that's what whole healed people do. They vibrate really high, and I just started vibrating really high. And when you do that, when your vibration raises to a certain level, you start you start seeing things. You start feeling things, right? Because you don't have all this density like holding you down and like, stomping on your face all day long. Like you feel free and clear and open. And I started to really feel energy again like when I was a child. Um Started to feel the presence of spirit with me. Um, I started to, see things, started to have visions, um, started to have incredible dreams. I knew I was being communicated to. I had all these kinds of sensations that were really new to me. I could hear things. And it just was like every day I was becoming more sensitive and more aware that there was something, out there that was much bigger than I had words for, I even had the education or knowledge for. I never felt scared. That's the crazy thing is I never felt scared as all this was happening to me. Um, yeah, it and I learned, one thing I think is really important to say is I learned a lot about discernment. What I would say is that, especially, I've been doing this for a while now, as going through my own journey and now working with people who are also going through the similar process, is when they first start kind of waking up to energy and spirit and things like that, and they're so desperate to find that connection, to God or to spirit or to whatever. Like they're just so desperate to see something, hear something, get some kind of piece of advice, get some kind of guidance. Like they're just there's almost this desperation, and I can relate because I know what that's like. But they're so desperate to connect that they kind of will unconsciously allow or open themselves up to anything. And, they'll start connecting to spirits that aren't in their highest good, or they'll start attracting negative energies or entities, or, because anytime you try to do even just being in prayer or meditation or any kind of spiritual practice that you do or have, and it can be very basic, but anytime you do that, anytime you try to connect to the other world, you're essentially opening a portal. You're opening a doorway to the other world. And if you're not careful, you can allow anybody to walk through that door or anything to walk through that door. So as I was going through my spiritual awakening, I was learning a lot about discernment. um yeah, I was but luckily I think God had always gifted me with a strong idea of what is for me and what isn't for me. Um, which is probably the reason why I was very aware of New Age spirituality and that whole movement, but I never like got too close to it because I think I could always sense that there were a lot of people in that movement, good-hearted people, people who meant well, they didn't know what they were doing. And they didn't know who and what they were summoning and who they're talking to. And like, you know, I just, the whole like alien movement and just, I don't know. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I had good discernment and I was getting stronger through my spiritual awakening, learning discernment. Um, I did have some hard lessons to learn around discernment. I think in the beginning, um, there maybe were some things or energies or entities that I attracted because I didn't truly know what I was doing. So I was learning. I was learning that I only wanted what was in my highest good, what was in my highest divine alignment. Thy will be done. God's will be done. Whether I'm doing energy work, whether I'm doing divination, I was very clear. I think always really clear in my heart that if I was going to have a spiritual awakening, I was going to do it on my terms. And I was going to walk hand in hand with God. Like he wasn't going to stray from me and I wasn't going to stray from him. And as all this stuff is going on, like I'm like my intuition is getting really strong and I'm starting to get all these messages and I'm starting to feel crazy energetic sensations like coming in and out of my hands and energy swirling above my head. And it's not like I was asking for these things to happen. I wasn't asking for these things to happen. They just kept happening. And there were times I thought I was going crazy because I didn't have a mentor or a teacher or somebody who was like holding me through this, being like, "Oh yeah, this is actually kind of normal. This is this happens to a lot of people." Um, I didn't really have that. There were days I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go crazy. My husband's gonna like leave me because I just got too weird. Like too many weird things are happening. He's gonna be over this." um, but I also at the same time, I think no matter what was going on in my head, my heart was always calm. I had such a strong level of trust for whatever was happening to me. Um, and I remember a lot of times, I want to share this with you guys because I remember, I work with a lot of clients, and when they're going through this process, they want everything to happen now. They want they want to be further along than they are. And they want to skip steps, and they want, they want to warp speed to the next level, the next stage, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But I had some common sense to know, because remember, as all this was going on, I have two very, very young kids at home. And I'm still running a full-time business with my husband, and I'm a householder, and I'm just like, I can't go fast. I had the common sense, like, as exciting as this whole process is, I have to go slow. Because if I go too fast, I don't think I'll be able to keep up. And I still have a family to raise, and all these things. And so I had this prayer always, like, okay, God, just ease me into, like, wherever you're taking me, whatever you're showing me, whatever path you have me on, like, I'm okay going slow right now. Only give me what you know I can handle, because I can't handle like a nervous breakdown. I can't handle like a spiritual crisis right now, like this big existential crisis. I can't handle it. And I knew that. And so my healing journey was slow in the beginning, like really slow. And slow and steady wins the race. That was the best thing I could have ever done. Um, so yeah, I really honored that slow pace. And yeah, that would be my advice if you're going through something similar, is just trust. Trust, trust God's divine timing. And if it feels slow, or it feels like you're barely moving, or maybe you're not moving at all, just know that that's on purpose. It's always on purpose. There's a reason for it. Looking back, I'm like, thank God I went so slow. Thank God I wasn't one of those people that just all of a sudden like woke up and all my spiritual gifts were online, because I could not have handled that. I really couldn't. I'm being real with myself. I couldn't have handled it. So it was just like every day, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit more. And my spiritual gifts and abilities slowly, very slowly, started to make themselves known. It was a painfully slow process. And there were days where I did want it to go faster, but I also, okay, I'm not really sure why my computer stopped recording. Um, Maybe that was a sign I should like move on in my story a little bit. So I am just going to kind of pick up where I left off. So I was going through this whole big healing journey, and I would say it was a good like 5 or 6 months after that yoga retreat, after meeting Susan, when I finally decided I was going to read Malidoma Some's book of Water in the Spirit. And what led me to Malidoma's book was Susan had done this form of divination for me with cowrie shells. It was an African cowrie shell divination. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. And she had learned it from this man that I had never heard of before, Malidoma Some. And it was such a beautiful divination. It was just one of the greatest gifts I think anybody could have ever offered me, especially at that time in my life. And I had so many questions. There was so much of the technology and the divination and the medicine wheel, and like so much of it I didn't understand. And I was really curious to learn more about where that came from. And so of course I was like, okay, um, I always knew I would read that book. I just for some reason, I kept putting it off, and maybe it was because I wasn't ready for it, and the timing wasn't right, but I finally decided, "Okay, I'm gonna read Malidoma's book." Um, and I picked it up and I started reading it, and I was only a few chapters in, I think, and I just remember having this immediate knowing that that's my teacher. I just knew. I just knew. And it was a weird, like, again, you have the heart and you have your intuition and you have that sacred part of you that's just like, that's my teacher. I know it. This isn't up for debate. And then, of course, the mind gets in the way, and the mind's like, really, Kelsey? Like, this this West African elder, like, how are you gonna go study with him? You're a mom of 2 little kids. You what, are you gonna get on a plane and go to Africa? Like, what are you thinking? How is this man your teacher? You're crazy. Like, how is this gonna work? And I didn't even know if he was still alive. I thought he lived in Africa, and I guess he didn't. He had been living in the States for quite a while. Um, but it just like your head is just the head is so much louder than the heart, and I hate that it's like that, but it is, but I just really held on to no, no, no. There's something here. Something told you that's your teacher. You have to believe that. You have to trust that. And so I was just like, okay, I put it out there. I was like, God, if I'm supposed to meet Malidoma, if I'm supposed to train with him or study with him or meet him, like open the door. Make it easy for me. I'm not getting on a plane and flying halfway across the country. Not with 2 kids. Not doing that. So make it easy for me. Show me if you open the door, I will walk through it. And this is meant to be, then I'll trust it. And it wasn't even like a month or 2 later that Susan sent me a message, and she's like, Melidoma's coming to Colorado, right? And I live in Kansas, so they're neighboring states. So it was like a 6-hour drive for me. And she's like, he's coming for a week over the summer. He's gonna he's gonna do this week-long intensive. Can you make it? And I was I was like, I mean, of course I'm going, right? Like I of course. Um, the timing of it is just it blows my mind to this day. It was perfect. Perfection. And I was scared to go. I was so scared. We really couldn't afford it. But my husband was just like, he knew how important it was. And I think on some level he always knew. He's just always been my biggest supporter and cheerleader, and he like just cleared the way. He's like, here's the money, I got the kids, just go. Um, and then, like I remember, I remember, I mean, it still happens now. I'm a lot more comfortable with who I am as a person, but like back then it was really scary because I was doing things that nobody around me was doing. I was having these experiences that nobody, including my husband, could understand. And I felt like a I felt like a big outsider. And it was really lonely. It was a really lonely time in my life. And I remember like people would always kind of give my husband a hard time, like, you know, I can't believe you let her like he like my husband controls me or anything, but like I can't believe you let her go. What is she even doing in Colorado? Like, I can't believe you would allow her to do that and stuff. And he's like, okay, first of all, that's not how our marriage works. We don't let each other do anything. Like, we're free and people and we're free to do what we want. But he would always stick up for me, and he'd be like, I can't explain. what she's going through or what she's doing, but all I know is that I have my wife back. She's happy. And um and she's healing, and she's becoming this incredible woman that I always knew, was inside of her, and that was it. And he would shut him up really quickly. Um so maybe he'll watch this someday, I don't know. But shout out to him because he's really special. Um So I went on multiple intensives and kind of retreats with Malidoma over the years, and got to study with him quite a bit. I got a decent amount of face time with him. For those of you who don't know, Malidoma Somé is a West African elder from the Dagara tribe near Burkina. So he's an indigenous man. Um, and yeah, I went on these retreats. They were all really healing for me. I did a lot of healing work. Um, we worked a lot with the elements like nature and earth and water and fire, and it was all very, very healing. Also, I got to be in a community with people um, who are like me, and that was healing because I didn't get that. I didn't get that back home. Um, I felt very seen. Malidoma always saw me. He always allowed everybody at his retreats to be heard and to have a voice, and that is healing. So it was a really special time in my life to get to work with him so much. And I felt like all the little broken pieces of me, and some of them had been broke since I was a child. And some of them had been broke more recently, just through life. Life is hard. But all of those broken little pieces that I kind of had lost, and all the ways in which I had lost my most authentic self and my most true self, they were just all beginning to come back through what I was doing personally and privately, my own healing journey, and through the work I was doing with Malidoma. I just was becoming whole. I was becoming whole, and I was feeling better and better every day. And I remember that very first week, I met Melodoma. I trained with him for like a week, and then at the end of the week, he divined for me. He did carry shell divination, and he's divined for me more times than I can count now. But the first time he divined for me, I'm just gonna say this. I drove home immediately afterwards because he did my divination in the morning, and then I drove home. 6-hour drive, I cried the whole way home. Like, just this was so long ago, and it's still like I still get so emotional over it because he's an incredible diviner. And he reminded me so many things that day. He reminded me how heavenly protected I was. He said I come into the world with an impermeable kind of protection around me that would ensure that I didn't get lost, that I wouldn't lose my way. And, looking back at my life and my spiritual awakening, I think this is why I never did get deep into the occult stuff that a lot of people who first wake up kind of get stuck in. I never looked that way. Like, it just never drew me in. It never attracted me. Um, it's just because I've been very protected and blessed. And I still have the recording from my very first divination with him. And I replay that recording every, every 6 months or so. I remember one time he said, Kelsey, these hands, he was talking about my hands, my hands. He said, these hands are meant to touch people. He said, that's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. Touch people. And he painted this picture of how I was somehow connected to this endless supply of life force energy, God's energy just flowing. And I think I actually perplexed him that day. And it was perplexing to me because I think he didn't understand why I was sitting in front of him. Like, I think he was, I mean, I'd love to go back in time and really pick his brain, but the impression I got was he was like thinking to himself, how can someone be sitting here carry so much healing energy, so much love, so much divine grace and not even know it? I didn't know. I did not know what I was a vessel of. I did not know. I know it's like sounds so silly now. Um, but I didn't know what I was capable of, or I didn't really see myself as this child of God or this like special. I didn't see myself as special. I did not see myself as someone who was capable of helping people, of healing the minds and hearts of those who had lost their way. I didn't see that for myself at all. And I was still, I was still in the midst of my own healing journey. So I was still feeling broken enough that I couldn't see it yet. But he did. He did. And that's why I cried the whole way home. Because it was like just to have someone see you like that if you've never received that, it's is the greatest gift in the world. And honestly, that's why I ended up studying Carrie Shell divination with him because he had given me such a special gift. And I thought, man, if I could even be like, even like a fraction as good as he was, and just give that gift to somebody the way he did to me, like, what more could you ask for? To give that gift to somebody, it's so special. Um, and over the years, sitting with Malidoma, yeah, I mean, he did pass away. I miss him a lot, so sometimes it's hard to talk about him. Passed away a few years ago. Um, he wasn't necessarily Christian. He was taken from his tribe at a young age and by the church and forced into a Catholic like school or church and until he escaped many years later. So his whole like view of the church is a little bit, I mean, what you would expect. But he wasn't afraid to talk about Jesus and God with me, which I always really respected. I think there was a mutual respect because I didn't understand necessarily like I, I didn't understand his form of like worship or spirituality. Um, but we didn't have to, I guess. Um, but he would talk about Jesus with me, and over the years he'd have private conversations with me about Jesus and Jesus's disciples, and he would always remind me that, Jesus touched people and they were healed. Jesus would speak his words And people were healed just by receiving his message, just by listening to him. And I don't want you guys to think I'm comparing myself to Jesus. I would never do that. It just, these conversations gave me some kind of comfort knowing that I could heal people and help people in similar ways, and that I didn't have to abandon my faith or my religion or my love of Christ and my love of God. I didn't have to go seek something else. And so that gave me a lot of comfort. And I think in the beginning I needed that reassurance. And he was the person to give that to me. So long story short, in learning to heal myself, I ultimately became the healer. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't even want to be a healer. I didn't. Um, I, there were a lot of times when like you know where God's leading you, you know the path, and I was just like, choose someone else. I said that to God. I said that to God. I said, choose someone else. I'm not your girl. I don't want to do this. It's not me. Um, Truthfully speaking, I was just really scared. Um, I was just really scared. It's not that I didn't want to. I was scared. And I didn't think I could do it. And yeah, a lot of times I was just like, maybe God, like I know I said whatever door you open, I'm gonna walk through, but like I just don't really think I can walk through that door. Um, but I did. I like, kind of kicking and screaming. Maybe at times I even got kind of dragged a little bit through some of those doors. But I did keep pushing forward. I did keep trusting. And eventually people started asking me, I mean, they noticed me. They noticed that I was different, that I was changed, that I was transformed. And, people in my inner circle, people that were close to me that were really paying attention, they just started asking me, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Can you show me? Can you help me? Um, it's not in my nature to say no. If I can help somebody, I'm going to help them. And so I began becoming really curious about alternative forms of healing and what it meant to heal our deepest layers. Essentially, I wanted to know how to heal the level of soul or spirit or energy, like how to heal those really deep layers. So, over the years, I did study Reiki, shamanism, um, other forms of healing, really anything that was kind of in front of me. I would try it on for size. I talked about this in kind of the first video about when you're not sure what's next, just sit yourself down at the buffet table and take it all in. Like whatever interests you, whatever you're curious about, whatever excites you, learn as much as you can and just take it all in and just kind of follow those breadcrumbs because they will lead you somewhere eventually. And just keep filling yourself up with knowledge and wisdom and learn as much as you can. And so yeah, I did start to become really curious and interested in other forms of healing. I kind of like the question that was always on my mind was like, how did our ancestors heal? How did they know like what herb to use if they had a headache or a stomach ache? Like, where did that wisdom come from? Where did that knowledge come from? How was somebody like Jesus or one of his disciples able to lay hands on somebody and they be cured? I was curious about that, and I wasn't afraid to just like dive into some of that esoteric knowledge and that ancient wisdom. But I will say that, I tried on a lot of different things, a lot of different healing modalities, and nothing ever truly felt authentic for me. And like picking one particular path of healing or modality of healing just never felt right. Um, and so eventually I'd learned to just trust myself and my instincts and not follow any specific recipe or modality or protocol. I mean, eventually after I kind of had this like foundation of healing, I just I opened myself up to God and Jesus and like invited angels in the room and I was like, just show me. Just show me. Um, Show me, tell me, teach me. And that's still how I operate today. Every healing session I do with somebody, I don't usually know what's gonna happen until that moment where I start healing and I open myself up to God. And that's the first thing I do. I call God in the room. I call the angels in the room. I call Jesus in the room. I say, please be with me now and show me. Let me be an instrument. Let me be like an arm for you. Let me be your voice and just move through me. Show me what to do, tell me what to do, teach me what to do. And even to this day, I have healing sessions all the time where I'm like, oh, that's new. I've never seen that. I've never read that in a book. I didn't even know that was a thing. And they're just teaching me on the fly, really. And that kind of became my process, which is scary. um, which is scary, but it was also that's what felt authentic to me. That's what felt true to me as a healer. Was just being really open. Um, yeah, and here's what I want to say about my healing work. Um, I don't believe that I'm the one necessarily doing the healing. I feel like I'm more of just the conduit or the vessel. Um, I feel, yeah, like before all of my sessions, my prayers are always like, I give God, Jesus, angels permission. Like I just say, use me, use my voice, use my hands, use me, let me be in service to you. And let me be in service to humanity. And my biggest prayer is just always that whatever I say to a client or whatever I do, just let it all be done in God's highest divine alignment. Again, thy will be done. So I'm just kind of the intermediary. Like I'm the bridge, I guess. That's how I see my work. And therefore it's not really me. I'm able to maybe kind of channel or bring down some of that divine energy, or that divine guidance and that wisdom. And I'm just able to be the one to bridge whoever's sitting in front of me with the other world, the world of spirit sitting at their back. And when I'm in a healing session or a divination session, it's not about what I want. It's not even about what the client wants. It's always about what God has planned for us. And so I trust that wholeheartedly. I trust that wholeheartedly. And I also believe that whoever shows up to me to work with me has been sent by God. I very rarely send people away. I very rarely tell people, no, I don't think I can help you. I mean, it happens, but it's rare. It's rare. Um, Most of the people who show up are like we're in perfect alignment. We're meant to be together. We're meant to work together on some level. Yeah, and I hear that all the time. People are always like, I don't know how I found you. I just did. And I just smile to myself because I know. I know how they found me. I know that there's something that we can't see that's just connecting us all and bringing us together and putting the people in front of us that we need. Just like God put Susan in front of me and Malidoma and my yoga teacher Jeannie, and God just keeps putting these people in front of me that I'm meant to work with. And again, it's not me. It's not me. So that's how I became a healer. I I just started doing healings in my living room. People just started asking me to work with them. And it was before I felt ready. You'll never feel ready. If you think you're going to feel ready, you're never going to feel ready. Um, but people just started asking me like if I would work with them, if I would help them. And so I just like invited them into my living room because I had nowhere else to do it. And I'd set out this little like floor mat on the ground in the middle of the living room, and I'd put some pillows and blankets down, and we'd just sit on the couch and talk. And then I'd have them like lay down on the floor, and I'd just start like performing work on them, doing energy work, doing healing. And then and it was all people I knew in the beginning, and then like strangers started showing up, not strangers, but like people that I didn't really know. And so like they started showing up in my living room, and I finally looked at my husband and I was like, okay, I think I need to get an office and make this more official. Yeah, because like I can't just like keep inviting people I don't know into my home. I can't, like, this isn't the kind of work you do out of your home. So I got an office. Gosh, maybe it's been 3 or 4 years. I think it's been almost 4 years ago. And since I'm recording this, and I didn't want to. I was like still in resistance, still like, no, God, maybe you're going to choose someone else, right? Like, it's still not me. You're gonna choose someone else. Because like I resisted the office. I didn't want it. Um, and Jamie, my husband, he was the one. He was always the one that was like, why? Why are you resisting this? Why are you resisting who you are and who you're meant to be? And he was always the one who pushed me when I didn't feel like I was good enough or when I got scared. And he was always the one to give me that little boost I needed. And so um he was a big part of like the construction of our office. We actually share an office, so he runs the restaurant business on one half and I run my healing business on the other half. And it's an odd combination, but it works. And so I was like, okay, I guess I built a website, I built a blog, and I just started showing up in whatever way I felt called to show up. So that's how I got here. That's how I got here. Um, Let me wrap up by saying this. the further along that I get in my life, the closer I feel like I am growing in my faith, and the more connected I feel to God. I don't know if you guys remember, but from the very first story I was telling was like being a teenager, just knowing I had to be connected to God. Like that was my deepest longing. And everything has truly brought me so close to God. My faith is stronger than it ever could be. And yeah, and it wasn't always like that in the beginning, but that's how I know that I'm on the right path. I've grown so strong in my love of God and Christ, and wanting to be of service to the greater, wanting to be in service to humanity, wanting to help in any way that I can. Um, and all of that is possible because I said yes to my own healing journey. I said yes to myself. And through that whole journey, through that whole process, ultimately, what I found was the thing that I was always searching for. My deepest longing was realized. You know, I just to feel connected to God's unwavering love and support in my life. That, I think that's all I could have ever asked for. I know this was a very, very long story, especially if you watched both parts. I apologize. It was completely unscripted and I don't know how to condense it. Um, I really just wanted to show up for those who are curious because I know that you're out there. I really just wanted to show up for you with complete vulnerability and honesty and transparency and give you a little insight into my process and my journey and my story. I am really grateful that I have had the opportunity to share this with you, and I really appreciate you listening. Um, yeah, from the bottom of my heart, I'm really, really grateful. And I hope that you have found this helpful. Thank you so much for being here.